Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today is a solo show. We're going to talk about creating compassion with astrology. Astrology was one of the major keywords that got a lot of you or past listeners into my realm, if you will. Spirit, purpose, and energy used to rank number one when you typed in astrology as a keyword. Now, Apple Podcasts has changed how you search things. So for those of you that are new to the show and wondering why we're talking about astrology, the listeners that I've had for years know that I use astrology to help people, again, create compassion for yourself and others. I'm not an astrologer. I don't even know how to become an astrologer. And I wouldn't even really want to, because every time I have an astrology reading, it's so overwhelming that I don't know what to do with it. Many people use astrology to predict the future or look at what's going to happen in your life, and I don't do that. How I use astrology is to look at your natal chart, so that would be your birth planets, and look at the energy behind that and how that energy creates habits, patterns, beliefs, a point of view, things you think are important, the ways you react in the world, and then to have clarity about why you are the way you are and why others are different from you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I am teaching an astrology course. It's a 4-week course. It will be live, which means if you sign up, you do get some live coaching and Q&A, and that starts on Tuesday, March 10th for 4 weeks. It will be recorded, and when you register, you'll also be linked to a video, a 50-minute video that I did on Astrology 101 that explains sort of the basics. Today, we'll talk a little bit about some of that, but it won't be as thorough as that video. And you can go to jjflazanes.com/astrology if you know right now that you want to join us in this course. But before I continue, I just want to make a few other announcements. I have my Inner Circle Mastermind, and I realize I didn't do such a great job, probably, of explaining that I have 2 Inner Circle groups. One is the Inner Circle Mastermind, which is a year-long program that is now closed, so you can't join it anyway. And that is for people who are in business or want to be in business, want to write a book, start a podcast, and using the mind, body, soul method in money. So that's not even an option, so let that go for a second. Then I also have the Inner Circle Membership, which is a $9.99 membership where we do once a month group coaching. We've just started a book club within the membership. We just all decided over the weekend that we were going to do that. So because we're kind of already doing it. We spent a lot of time on The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And there's an Inner Circle member podcast. So it's a podcast that you can't get unless you're a member. And that podcast is a lot of solo shows, Q&As, and then Doug and I were going through The Big Leap and really workshopping every chapter and every section because I had Gay Hendricks on the show. It'll be published at the end of March or maybe even April. So anyway, so it's a life-changing book, and I thought there were so many people engaged in the conversation, I asked them if they wanted to do a semi sort of book club within the group, and most people have said yes. So we have the podcast that is separate and different and new. We have now a book club. We do challenges. It's $9.99 a month. And for those of you that are fans or those of you that are super fans, I really invite you to consider coming over and checking it out. You can go to jjflazanes.com/inner circle. There's a 7-day free trial. I will tell you that most of it is done on Facebook, and you don't get a lot of emails. You'll get one email with the link to the Facebook group to join us, and then past that, everything happens in the Facebook group or on our once a month Zoom call and through the podcast that I do specifically for the Inner Circle. Now, why I'm telling you about the Inner Circle is because we're also starting a fasting mimicking diet. So I decided that it would be a great group of people to do a lot of accountability with. And in January, we did a 5-day fasting mimicking diet, and we're doing it again starting March 9th. So starting March 9th, we're doing a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. So for those of you that heard that show with Jeannie Peters and are interested in trying it out, and you want some accountability and you want to feel like you're connected to others who are doing the same thing you are, that might be another reason for you to join the Inner Circle in March. If you are interested in that, I would recommend contacting Jeannie Peters, jp@nourishingwellness.com, and ordering a Prolon kit. which is basically all of the food and tea and drinks and snacks and desserts, everything you would need for that 5-day fasting mimicking diet. If you've done it before and you've already done the kit, I have a document that Jeannie created that basically is a do-it-yourself. But I will tell you, I strongly recommend everyone who wants to do it for the first time that you do it with the kit. It makes it so much easier on you, and then you know what to expect when you do it yourself. So that would be happening on, again, March 9th, and you would need to join the Inner Circle at least a couple of days before that. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. Also, the mastermind had 2 live events, and the first live event is happening, and it's not open to other people. I'm just telling you what's coming. The first weekend live event within the Inner Circle mastermind is happening at the end of March in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm deciding to stay an extra day and put a meetup together. And I already have 3 or 4 or 5 people who are wanting to meet up in person. So for those of you that live near Atlanta or are willing to travel, I am doing a meetup there on Sunday, March 29th at 4 o'clock in Buckhead at the True Foods. Also, I've created this meetup group, and I don't know how it's going to work because most of the time meetup needs to be in places where you are locally, but I'm going to try it. If you're interested in a meetup anywhere in the world, literally, you can join my meetup group, and then anytime I'm traveling, I can put a meetup together and I'll look to see who's in the group and where you live in the world. So if you're interested in joining the meetup group, it's free. You do have to register with Meetup, and it is free. You'd go to jjflazanes.com/meetup. And if you're on one of my email lists, so like the Manifestation Challenge, the next Manifestation Challenge will be in April. If you're already on the list or in a group, you will be able to see the link. So if you're not, then you might miss out, which is why I have plenty of opportunity for you to get more involved in the community on some level. Lots of free stuff. And then, of course, $9.99 a month for the Inner Circle membership. So please, if you consider yourself a fan, like a real fan or even a super fan, I would ask you why you're not in this group. It's super active, very supportive, and they have a great time, and people love the group coaching and even just watching it after the fact because it makes you feel more connected to people all over the world who are interested in the same things you're interested in. Okay, so back to astrology. And again, the disclaimer is I'm not an astrologer. So I do astrology readings, and people have to buy the one-on-one starter pack, which is 2 sessions if you want a personal reading. But that's 2 sessions. And again, how I use it, how I have found astrology really beneficial is to make sense of why people look at the world differently. And for those of you that have been following me for a while or have any education around astrology, let me just start at the beginning and I'll do a quick overview. First, there are 4 elements. And by the way, I do Western astrology. I don't do Vedic. So there's a lot of talk about Vedic astrology, and I don't even consider this new sign that they're talking about, which happened, I think, after 2000 something. So again, I'm not as concerned about the technicalities. I'm concerned about the energies. So what I do is basically take 2 recipes for chocolate cake, and I see how they're different and how they're going to affect the way the chocolate cake tastes. So if you use something like an olive oil versus butter in your fat for a chocolate cake, it changes the way the cake tastes. It could change the way that it looks. So that's how I use astrology, is to take the energies of the elements in the different planetary positions and see how you manifest that. How does that show up in your life? How does that affect your relationship with others? How does that create conflict when you're different? And how do you recognize that you're different? So that's why we're doing this astrology course, because in the Inner Circle membership, it came up. And I said, hey, are you guys wanting more, like really a deep dive on astrology? And they said yes. So I put this 4-week course together, mainly for the Inner Circle members, but now I'm offering it to you as well. So let's talk about those 4 elements. And the course is going to be set up that the 4 weeks, each week is focused on one of the elements and how that element shows up in your life and in your personality and in your belief systems in different planetary positions. So first, let me go over the elements. The elements are fire, air, earth, and water. And actually, they're not even in that order. Fire is the first element of the zodiac. Earth is the second element of the zodiac. Air is the third, and water is the fourth. And very simply, fire is energy. Fire is movement. Fire is action. Okay, so if you have a lot of fire in your chart, I had a client once, he was a Scorpio sun sign, but when I was talking with him and he was talking about his therapist and how his therapist asked if he ever shut down or shut off. And he literally said, "What do you mean shut off? I don't shut off. This is how I am all the time. I don't know what shut off means. What does shut off mean?" And I thought, okay, let me look at your chart. So I did his chart, and his sun was Scorpio, but his moon, his ascendant, his Venus, and his Mars were all in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the last of the fire signs and the most evolved of the fire signs. But all that fire needed an outlet. So how I program exercise, coaching, is going to be based on what your needs are. How do we create balance in this situation where he is clearly so much fire that it's going to manifest and look like anxiety if he doesn't channel it. So fire is energy. Then we have earth. Earth is stability. Most earth people or earth signs in different positions want to feel stable and secure and want some kind of control or assuredness, some kind of way, tangible way to know something or to see something. And again, earth signs, and I'll go over more of this in the video when you register for the course and of course over the course of the next 4 weeks. But when you have an earth sign, again, how would I program differently for someone with an earth sign? Well, depending on where it is in your chart, let's say it's in your moon. And your moon is how you deal with emotions. If you're an earth sign moon, you're probably really stubbornly not going to change. In fact, I know a lot of earth sign moons. So for those of you that have been listening for a while, that would be you Virgos. I don't hate Virgos. Everyone thinks I don't like Virgos. No. What I have often said is that many of the clients I've worked with who have Virgo moons literally don't change until they manifest something outside of themselves that forces them to change. And what's been really amazing over the years of working with people is even when people are conscious of their issues, they know what's wrong, they see it, they still don't change, which is why they manifest cancer or something exploding, or somebody had pneumonia, or, they bring about something that forces change. I don't know why, but it's mostly because of this earth stability, immobile, not moving, not changing, fear of the unknown, fear of losing control. Okay. So then let's move to air. Air is the third element of the zodiac in terms of, I'm going based on the calendar. And Aries is the first of the signs, and Aries starts March 21st. And then we move through that, and I'll explain more of that. You'll see that more in the video. And because I won't even go over that necessarily in the 4-week course. I kind of want you to do a little prep work before we dive into all the different planetary positions, how they affect your life, how you think, how you believe, how you deal in relationship, and then how each element produces different results, so to speak. So air signs are about thinking and thoughts. Air signs love to create in their mind, very creative, and again, thinking, and seeing and believing, but also often detached from their bodies. Air signs often think about their feelings, but don't often feel their feelings. So many times air signs have a lot of anxiety because, again, they have all this energy that's just swirling around in their head, and they don't either embody it and allow it to process through them, or they don't have an outlet for it. Air signs can really see, especially Aquarian air sign, are big picture thinkers, futuristic, see trends happening before they happen. But air, again, is about thoughts. So the more air you have in your chart, the more in your head you probably are. The last element is water, and water is about feelings. So I'm a Pisces, but I have a lot of Sag. And if you're a water sign, that would be Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Water signs are about feeling. And sometimes we lead with thinking that our feelings are always truth. And not that every sign isn't susceptible for addiction. Everybody is, because as we know, based on some of the shows I've done in the past here, addiction, we all have addictions. We all have ways we numb emotion or prevent ourselves from feeling what's real for us because it's uncomfortable. Water signs often can feel overwhelmed with emotion. So if you have, I'm thinking of a particular client who's got a Pisces moon. So that's how she deals with emotion. And so you feel like you pick up on other people's energy, even if you're not aware that you're empathic. Maybe you just take it on so deeply, and you're usually in a frequency of some kind of despair or fear or worry. And you can get overwhelmed, almost like you're drowning in your own emotions. See, I use astrology because there are ways to cope with that. There are ways to balance that. It might be who you are. So for instance, for me, for a long time, I was a victim. But I thought I was a very articulate victim. I would tell people, you hurt my feelings, and here's how not to do it again. I was very proud of how well I could articulate what you did wrong and how I don't want you to do it again. But it wasn't until, of course, most of you know the story. I was driving along in my car. I had moved to California. It was 2001, I believe. And I was driving south. I drove a lot when I first started my company because I took on clients anywhere I could get paid. So I was driving an hour south and driving an hour north. Sometimes I'd be in the car for 4 hours, 5 hours just for 2 clients. Well, I'm driving along in my car listening to my CD, my first Abraham CD, and I heard, "You are the creator of your own reality." And I'm glad I didn't wreck, but I literally had that bodily sensation of, holy shit, I'm the creator of my own reality? Well, that's good news. That means I can change it if I don't like it. So all of a sudden, I really understood that no one else was in control of my feelings. Yet there were times where there's like a punch in the gut. And I would call that a trigger that most people can have. You don't have to be a Pisces or a water sign. But it wouldn't happen often, but it would happen occasionally where I would feel like I got punched in the gut and my feelings got quote unquote hurt. So I thought to myself, well, how do I deal with that? And I'm looking at my astrology and I'm thinking, all right, I'm a Pisces and I'm sensitive, I'm emotional. What do I don't feel like I can do anything about that punch in the gut. It just happens. Well, I decided that, yes, let's say I can't do anything about it. This is astrologically how energetically I'm put together. And maybe for the rest of my life, I may feel a punch in the gut now and then. Maybe I have no control over that. But I absolutely do, without a shadow of a doubt, have control over what I do next. After the punch in the gut, most people tell the story of why their feelings are hurt. Most people continue the momentum of that punch in the gut down a spiral rabbit hole that you can't get out of. And now you're left feeling victimized because someone hurt your feelings. Well, the Sag part of me did not like that very much. And so I decided that, fine, I will accept the first second I get punched in the gut. I will say, okay, and then I will choose to direct my thoughts and my stories and my awareness onto what can I do about it, or how could I interpret this in a way that doesn't feel like this. And minus, I'd say, talking to my ex about divorce, I didn't feel a punch in the gut ever again. I think it went away pretty quickly, and I'm trying to find in my memory here a time where since then, and that's been years ago, that I've actually felt a punch in the gut. So just by my awareness of how I operate in the world and accepting that that's part of me. And I'll give you another quick story, and maybe you can relate to this, those of you that know your astrology. When I was in a relationship, this is a long time ago, I was here in California, and we were together for 1.5 years total, but I'm going to say we were together maybe not even 6 months, broke up, me and this boyfriend, but then we kind of got back together, but he never really committed. And there was a part of me that was super impatient. In my chart, and I'll go over this in the video, I consider different parts of the chart like 3 stages: first stage, second stage, third stage. First stage elements are the least developed of their elements. And then the second stage are a little bit more developed, and the third stage are the most developed, the most complex. Think of it as wine. When you first crush grapes and you put them in a bottle, it tastes like grape juice. It takes a long time for it to mature and to become more complex to taste like wine. And sometimes the longer you age it, the more depth the actual wine has. So that's kind of the first, second, and third stage in astrology. And most of my major planets are in the third stage. So here I'm looking at my astrology and I'm thinking, what is wrong with you, JJ? Why are you so impatient? I literally would be upset on why he couldn't decide or why he wouldn't tell me or why he wouldn't choose. I didn't even care what the answer was. It was like, just tell me, are we together or not together? I got a little crazy about it, but I was observing myself and thinking, what is your deal, JJ? Like, you're so gray about everything else. Why are you so black and white in this situation? Well, I went to my astrology and saw that my Venus, how you handle love, is in Aries. Aries is the first of the signs. Aries is the infant of astrology. Aries is the least developed. Aries is like black, white, left, right, yes, no. That's how Aries process. So in my Venus, how I dealt with love, I had the least amount of capability of depth of processing. So I was like, oh, okay. It's like the only place I have Aries, and it's the only place I think I have a first stage astrological sign. So now I have clarity, and I went, okay. So I felt better. I didn't feel broken. One of the things that frustrates me about how people deal with either psychology or emotional issues, both with themselves and others, is we make all these judgments about what we think normal is. And we really get down on ourselves and we shame ourselves because we say, well, you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't act like that to yourself and others. And what I love about astrology is it explains why you do it. It makes no sense. It helps me not to tell myself, JJ, stop doing that. Don't do that. Why are you doing that? Why are you so impatient? Meditate on that. Well, I can do the meditation to help balance that, but I first have to accept this is going to be my possible first impulse all the time. And if I know that about myself, if I get that, then I can relax into it and then do what's necessary to help balance it out, especially when it sabotages certain things. So those are some stories about how I use astrology. And the same thing in relationships. Let me talk about a set of clients that I have who have had for a long time, and it's a married couple. And I know when I first did my very first astrology podcast on the show, and it was using astrology in relationships, and I did it back in 2014. After she heard that show, she said, I feel a lot better now. I now have a little bit different perspective on how my husband reacts and why he is the way he is. Because even as an educated psychologist, we're wanting to find where people are broken. We're wanting to find where people have wounds that we can say, well, that's because of this wound. And sometimes it is. But doesn't it feel better to say, well, this is astrologically, energetically, how I'm built. Now, what do I do with it? It takes out the judgment of being right or wrong or being wounded or not healed. And it gives you tools to understand what is necessary to add into your life so that you can thrive. Some of the suicides that have happened over the last 5 to 6 years, Robin Williams, the lead singer from Linkin Park, both were water signs. Robin Williams was a Cancer with a Pisces moon, and the lead singer of Linkin Park was a Pisces with a Pisces moon. And both had addictions. Both were overwhelmed with feelings. And let's look at this. Both were men. No judgment to your men, but most of you aren't taught to be comfortable in emotion. You're not supported in expressing fear or expressing sadness. Maybe sadness. I feel like sadness is acceptable. But for most men, even the sensitive ones, a lot of you don't like fear and refuse to embody and allow yourself to feel fear because you're too afraid of what it's going to look like it makes you weak. It's a very primal behavior where if you show weakness, you'll be defeated. So your caveman brain, which we're going to talk about next week with Harville and Helen, they're going to be doing safe conversations. So we talk a little bit about the different parts of the brain and how living from the higher part of the brain serves us better. but it's our fight or flight, our caveman brain that says my survival is always in question. Well, I think we know our survival most of the time is not in question, but if you're used to living in that part of the brain, or you're used to operating based on your wounds, based on your upbringing and your environment, if you're used to operating from that, then you're really not going to allow yourself to step into a more conscious state and a trust and compassion for yourself to allow yourself to feel your feelings, because you're too afraid of protecting yourself from somebody attacking you, so to speak, right? And this is for women too. Definitely women who are in business, women who are lawyers, women who are doctors, women who are playing a masculine role in life because you love what you do, you're smart, you're successful, you've got it together. But hey guys, it's called control freaks. And I'm one of them, so I can say that. Although I think I've done a really good job over the years of healing a lot of that and that judgment, and you guys actually have helped me to do that. I've always felt too much because nobody could keep up with what I was interested in and didn't seem interested in. I grew up in a place where my parents would listen to me, they'd support me, but they never followed me, and they couldn't get into the conversation. They weren't interested. So I was always looking for someone to reflect me back to me in a way and never found anybody until I moved to California. Then I thought I found somebody in my former husband, which I did to a certain degree, but it was still too much for him. And the message there was, I'm too much. I'm too much. And so then I started to believe that I must be too much. And here I am now giving myself permission to be whatever I am, putting it out there, and having a lot of you write back and say, wow, your information has changed my life. Some of you have been listening the entire time. I met one of you recently who's been listening for 4 or 5 years. Thank you. Not because your listening validates my being, but you listening, I mean, it does, but I was already feeling good. I was already feeling confident. I was already feeling free and accepting of the fact that I like where I am. And it's taken a while to get here. And the more people that I'm around, especially more successful people, like I've been around a lot of highly successful women business owners recently. And the first thing I pick up on very, very deeply is their insecurity. And someone from the outside would say, oh, but they're super successful. They make millions of dollars and they're well known and everybody knows who they are and they've got a big following. And all I keep picking up on and all I keep seeing are all the addictions of control and validation that they need, this attachment to external validation all the time. In order to start this show, literally Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, which originally was Freedom Fridays on Fit to Love, I had to say, screw it. I'm stepping into who I am and I'm going to share it, and I don't care who listens. Yes, it was selfish in a way, but it was liberating at the same time. I had to give myself permission to be who I was and who I am and what I was interested in talking about. And the minute I allowed myself to do that, not realizing that that was sort of a lot of my Sag, then the universe delivered. I found that I vibrated at a frequency that attracted other like-minded people at the same frequency. Now I realize part of it is just the freedom, the Sag seeking freedom and expression and education and knowledge and truth seeking. I mean, I have 3 Sag planets, so I have to honor that. And the Pisces part of me wanted to be a people pleaser so that somebody would accept me, love me, and feel connected to me. And now I feel more connected to myself than ever. I'm super secure in any relationship and anywhere I am, and know that I'm living the life I want. Yes, I don't love where I live and we're going to move, but I've attracted and manifested everything that I've ever wanted. Again, the journey's been interesting to get here, and this isn't the end. There's a lot more that I want. But in allowing myself to be compassionate about these energetic complexities that we get from astrology, that we learn and we accept. Yes, there are times I'm still impatient. Yes, there are times where my fire energy wants to fight back. Yes, there are times where I get triggered still, but I have tools to process. And over the years, it happens less and less. Over the years, I deepen this trust that I have in myself, the universe, and this journey that we're on. And hopefully a lot of you are feeling that too. You know, I bring on Dr. Eben Alexander and Anita Morjani and people who've crossed over and come back to tell you about it. I mean, I knew all of this before I started the show, but who was going to listen to me? I haven't had a near-death experience, but I 100% without a shadow of a doubt know what happens when we die. Now, saying that, for most people, they'd look at me and say, "How? You don't know. How could you know? You don't know. You don't have proof." And I say, okay, I just know. And I didn't need the science, but now I have the science. Thank you, Dawson Church. Thank you, Eben Alexander. Thank you, all of you people who've been really wanting to prove biology, belief, Bruce Lipton. Everybody who's out there proving all these sciences of things that some of us intuitively know, and trusting that and developing that. And that's part of my Sag and Pisces combination, is this deep intuition and how I've, over the years, continued to grow. Speaking of, I'm also going to be doing an animal communicator class. It's not me teaching it by myself. I'm having on, and you'll hear her later in a couple of months, Meredith Whitney. She is a pet communicator, and she teaches sort of psychic classes on how to become more psychic and be a better animal communicator. And I took a class with her, and it was just one class, but I'm going to put together a 4-week course. And it's not just about communicating with your pet, it's about increasing your psychic abilities. Because over the years, since I've started the show, I've increased my psychic abilities and my intuition. And every single person on the planet can do the same. Some people are built with their brain firing in certain patterns that allow them to connect quickly, and others don't. But now, between EFT and mind to matter and binaural beats, we have technologies that can, and meditation, we have technologies that can help us activate those parts of the brain to allow that in. So that's going to be in June, I believe. And in May, and again, you'll know all this if you just sign up for something and you get on the email list, or you join the Manifestation Challenge Facebook group, the free one, or you come in the inner circle. You'll know what's going on. And of course, I'll tell you later. And there's also in May another 4-week course on the basics of imago therapy, not the basics, but on creating your imago, like we're going to do it. Because again, in the inner circle, it's come up again and again. And I said, okay, do I need to do a 4-week course on actually doing this imago work that you hear me talk about all the time? So that's going to be in May. Let's start back in March. The astrology course is first, and the astrology course is starting on March 10th. It's a 4-week course, and we're going to do a deep dive each week on an element and how it operates in your chart in the different planets. Now, if you don't have that element in your chart, I would recommend that you also print out the astrology reports, just the positions, not wheels or houses. I don't do any of that. You print out your spouse, your parents, your children, your coworker, somebody who you want to make a better relationship with, so that we can use this information more specifically to create clarity, to understand. You know, I have some friends and people who were very important to me who have, let's say, a Libra moon. So moon is how you deal with emotion. Libra is an air sign. Libra is about balance. Libra is the scales. So one of the challenges of having a Libra moon is being indecisive emotionally about which way to go. Because so a lot of Libra moons find themselves very stuck. Again, anxiety, because it's an air sign, in the sign of how to process emotions. Don't feel the emotions, but just think about them. And then find yourself being able to look at both sides of a situation. Because remember, it's about balance and fairness, Libra. And you're looking at a situation and you're telling both sides of the story. You're seeing why you can agree with it. You're seeing why you don't agree with it. And you can go back and forth so much that you get yourself stuck and you don't take action and you never move forward. So someone with a Libra moon might have a lot of anxiety, possible depression, and feel trapped because you don't know which side to choose. When you understand that about yourself, you can use astrology and the rest of your chart and your choices about whether you meditate or how you do tapping or if you do grounding. I'm actually thinking about Devi Adea, who has a Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast, a good friend of mine. I did her chart on air, I believe, on her show, and she doesn't have a single earth sign. And so I said to her, I remember this because she's been doing it ever since. I said, you absolutely need to ground every day. If you do not, you will float away. So since then. She recognized that she was already doing those practices, but she said, no, it's absolutely, I always feel better when, and that she kind of has to ground, because if she doesn't, she'll be all crazy, emotional, thinking all over the place and not feeling her center. And of course she has her own practices that she does. She's very spiritual and intuitive, but I remember that was my advice to her because of what she lacked. And part of looking at your chart is to see, where do I lack balance? Again, let's go back to my client who was a Scorpio with 15 Sagittarius. If you can tell yourself, I should calm down, I should, and you're not going to get anywhere. The man needed to start running every day. He needed to run, and he didn't stay a client for too long, and it's been many years since I've seen him, and I know so much more now than I knew then. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have told him, you need a place to work this out. Therapy is not enough to move your energy. You need to exercise every day, and then probably ground at the same time. And that would probably advice I'd give him now. So if this interests you, I hope that you can feel there's no real judgment in this. It's literally looking at the elements. And to me, that's science. And then looking at how they behave and being able to have compassion for yourself and for others. I don't know a better way to live, quite honestly, because if you walk around blaming everybody for what they do and how they do it and how it hurt you and how you're not getting what you want from them, then you stay a constant victim. And nobody wins. You never feel good when you're a victim. And I believe you always have the choice to be empowered. You always have the choice to take responsibility for everything, even to some degree, how you influence other people's behavior. Without blame, without shame, just looking at the mechanics. And astrology is one of those tools that I use. And just a disclaimer also, it's one of the reasons why my love for astrology is one of the reasons why I'm not interested yet in doing something like human design or Enneagram. When I look at Enneagram for some clients and friends of mine, I see the astrological evidence of the same conclusion. But Enneagram just makes it, I think it's 12 or 10. I think it's 12, just like astrology is 12, but astrology is much more complex. So that's the reason, in case some of you are wondering, why I have yet to do a show on human design or Enneagram. It's because astrology satisfies that information for me. And I actually prefer the complexity of it because I believe when you have more information and more tools, then you can make more specific tweaks. If you just dumb me down to, oh, I'm a 1 and it means this. Okay, is that how you handle every situation? Is that, I said I'm a Pisces with a bunch of Sag. I'm generally quite gray and open and not impatient. And then we looked at my Venus and Aries. Oh, it's the opposite. And it literally is the opposite. I have wise one, last sign, most evolved sign, Pisces. And then I have Aries, the least evolved, in a place of love. So that's my plea for you today. Whether you take the course or not, you can definitely look up a lot of different astrology books. I use astro.com as my site, and I don't put a lot of stock in what it says. I think it's pretty good, but if you do a free report, it's free. So it's not as detailed and it's not as long. But if you do astro.com, I want you to do a personal portrait. And for those of you that join the course, you'll get an email with a Word document with the example of what I want you to print and what information I want you to have. So if you're doing your chart and other people's charts, again, I don't need houses or wheels or any of that stuff. We're literally looking at the detailed list of my moon is in this, my sun is in this, my ascendant's in this, my Venus is in this, my Mars is in this. Okay? All right. So if you have any questions, I am currently vacationing for my birthday, and you're welcome to come over to something you're welcome to email me or be on some kind of social media, Instagram or Facebook, but I might not be as quick to respond because I'm taking a very well-deserved, well-needed, exploratory, adventurous R&R vacation to celebrate my birthday, to be with my beloved, and to explore the world and to enjoy, because there's so much Sag in me. It does excite me to travel from time to time. I don't need to be constantly traveling. But I love learning about other cultures and people and experiences because to me, quality time and experiences are where life's at. You don't remember many things, but you always remember what you did and how you felt and when you did something new out of your comfort zone. And that's what I'm all about, is making life exciting yet fun, and to increase all of your frequencies, to trust and allow yourself not to upper limit yourself. And for those of you that are in the inner circle, you know what I mean. And we're going to get that. We're going to get there with Gay Hendricks later, but all the ways we upper limit ourselves in life and cut ourselves off from experiencing more joy, love, success, and abundance when we always want more. But there are ways in which we push back and don't allow more. So I would also recommend stepping outside of your comfort zone. And if this astrology course calls to you, there's a payment plan also. You don't have to pay in full, but you get the course right away when I get back, and when we start it on March 10th. It will be recorded and you will have access to it indefinitely. If you're interested, go to jjflizanes.com/astrology and let's get you prepared. And I hope today's show at least gives you some food for thought on how not to dismiss astrology, but possibly to see it as a tool that can give you clues for not only a better relationship with everybody, but a better relationship with yourself. Giving yourself some compassion, taking it a little bit lighter, thinking about Anita Morjani's show that we did about how people are in fear. Anita's a Pisces, and I wish, she had to go through what she went through, but, I could probably look at her astrology and see where all the fear is. Pisces normally are very afraid. They defend their worry, their ability to worry about everything. And of course, as we know, worry brings about lower immunity and makes us more susceptible to disease. So I hope today's show inspired you in some way, and I look forward to seeing you in something very soon. Check the show notes on how you want to get a little bit more involved in our community. Thanks so much.